All right, diving in. Today, it's all about Agile software development. Seems like you've really gone deep, gathered a ton of training materials, and you're ready to really get this whole Agile thing right. So we'll break it down, explore the different methodologies out there, and make sure you grasp those core Agile principles.
You know, it's really exciting that you're exploring this because Agile is, well, it's so dynamic and evolving. And it's not just a set of rules, it's more of a philosophy, I guess you could say, a response to some of the limitations we were seeing with the more traditional software development.
Yeah, like that old waterfall method. Oh, talk about rigid. You have to plan everything up front, every single little detail.
Right.
It's almost like building a house and then deciding you want to change the floor plan once the foundation is poured. Not a good idea.
Perfect analogy, really, because with waterfall, you really are locked in. And imagine, you're halfway through and suddenly realize a key feature just isn't going to work. Trying to change direction at that point, it's practically impossible. Like trying to redirect the waterfall uphill.
I see what you mean. So Agile is all about embracing change, being flexible, and adapting as you go.
Exactly. Agile it acknowledges that in the real world, things change. Priorities shift, new information comes to light, and Agile gives you the tools to respond to those changes gracefully.
Okay, I'm starting to see why it's so appealing, but how does it actually work? What makes it different from just, winging it?
Well, at the heart of Agile, you have the Agile Manifesto. It outlines 4 core values. First, it prioritizes individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So basically, it's valuing that collaboration and communication over just rigid procedures.
So it's not about just blindly following a process. It's about empowering people, letting them work together effectively.
Exactly. Second, the manifesto values working software over comprehensive documentation. Now, this doesn't mean documentation isn't important. It's just that the focus is really on delivering those tangible results, not just getting bogged down in all the paperwork.
That makes a lot of sense, especially in software, right? I mean, things change so quickly that documentation can be obsolete almost as soon as you finish it.
Absolutely. The third value emphasizes customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So it's about, building strong relationships with your clients, working together to achieve those shared goals rather than, getting stuck in adversarial contract disputes.
So it's all about partnerships, working together to create the best possible product. I like that. What's the fourth value?
All right, the fourth one. And this might be the most defining. It's responding to change over following a plan. So Agile acknowledges that change is inevitable. And instead of, resisting it, we embrace it as an opportunity to improve.
Okay, that sounds great in theory. But how does this translate to the real world? Are there specific frameworks or something that teams use to actually implement these Agile values?
Absolutely. There are a few popular ones you'll probably come across. One is Scrum, which is a very structured framework for implementing those Agile principles. Think of it as like a recipe for Agile.
I've always wondered, how does a team actually do Scrum?
So imagine a team working in these short bursts, what we call sprints. They're typically 2 weeks long. During a sprint, the team focuses on delivering a done increment, basically a usable piece of software.
So like a mini software development cycle that repeats every 2 weeks.
Exactly. And each sprint starts with sprint planning. That's where the team decides what they can realistically achieve in that time frame. They break down the work into smaller tasks and then create a sprint backlog, basically a to-do list for the sprint.
I see. So the sprint backlog isn't just any random list of tasks. It's carefully curated, I guess. It's got to have items that directly contribute to a usable piece of software at the end of the sprint.
Right. And to make sure everyone's staying on track, there are daily Scrum meetings, which are these short check-ins where they discuss progress, any obstacles they're facing, and plans for the day. Keeps everyone aligned and helps address issues quickly.
So communication is key. It sounds like Scrum is very structured, with those clearly defined roles and processes. What are some of those key roles?
Okay, so there are 3 key roles that drive the whole Scrum process. You have the product owner, who's representing the customer and defines what the product should do. They maintain what's called the product backlog, essentially a prioritized list of features and requirements.
So the product owner is kind of like the voice of the customer, making sure the team's building the right thing.
Exactly. Then you have the Scrum Master, who acts as a facilitator. They ensure the team is following those Scrum principles, helps remove any roadblocks, and really shields the team from distractions.
So the Scrum Master is like a coach, guiding the team towards success. What about the development team itself?
The development team in Scrum, it's cross-functional. meaning it includes everyone needed to build the product. So you have developers, testers, designers, you name it. They all work together to pull tasks from that sprint backlog and get them done.
So it's like a mini company within a company.
Mm-hmm.
That's a far cry from the silo departments you often see in those more traditional organizations.
Exactly. Scrum promotes collaboration and shared ownership, and the team is self-organizing, meaning they decide how to best accomplish the work.
So Scrum really empowers teams to take ownership and make decisions. Now, besides Scrum, what other Agile methodologies are out there? I've heard of Kanban. Is that similar?
Kanban's interesting. It actually originated outside of software development. It came from manufacturing, and it's all about visualizing work and optimizing the flow. Imagine a factory with an assembly line. Kanban helps to ensure that the work moves smoothly through each stage of the process.
Okay, so how does that apply to software development? Do people literally use an assembly line for code?
Not quite an assembly line, but you'll often see teams using Kanban boards. They can be physical or digital, and these boards visually represent the workflow. They'll have columns for, things like to do, in progress, and done. Tasks are represented by cards that move across the board as work progresses.
Okay, that sounds pretty visual and intuitive. How is Kanban different from Scrum? They both sound pretty agile to me.
That's a great question. While they both embrace Agile principles, they have distinct approaches. Scrum is all about those time-boxed sprints, delivering a done increment every 2 weeks. Kanban, on the other hand, focuses on that continuous flow. There are no fixed sprints, and work can start as soon as capacity becomes available.
So Scrum is like it's a structured dance routine with specific steps and timings, while Kanban's more like freestyle jazz. It flows more organically based on, the music.
That's a fantastic analogy. And while Scrum has those clearly defined roles, product owner, Scrum master, development team, Kanban is more flexible. Roles can be adapted to fit the team's needs.
So it sounds like Scrum might be better for projects with, clear goals and timelines, while Kanban might suit projects that are more fluid, more exploratory.
You're spot on. And there's another methodology worth mentioning, extreme programming, or XP. It's all about taking those agile principles to the, extreme, emphasizing things like pair programming, test-driven development, and continuous integration.
Pair programming.
Yeah.
Isn't that like having two chefs in a tiny kitchen? Won't they just get in each other's way?
It might seem counterintuitive, but pair programming can actually lead to higher quality code and faster development. It's basically two developers working together at the same computer, constantly reviewing each other's work, catching errors early on, and sharing knowledge.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that could be beneficial. It's like having that built-in quality control and mentorship all in one. So we've got Scrum, which is structured and iterative, Kanban, which is all about continuous flow, and XP, which takes agile principles to the extreme. I'm curious, how do these principles translate to the actual work of developing software?
Well, one of the most powerful concepts is working in small batches. Imagine you were mailing out brochures for a big marketing campaign. You could fold, stuff, seal, and stamp thousands of envelopes at once, and then send them all out.
Oh, that sounds like a recipe for disaster. What if there was a mistake in the brochure or the address labels? You'd have wasted a ton of time and money.
Exactly. That's why working in small batches is so effective. You might fold, stuff, and seal 100 envelopes, send those out, get feedback, and then adjust your process based on that feedback before continuing with the next batch.
That makes a lot of sense. Small batches let you course correct early and avoid those costly mistakes. And I'm guessing this same principle applies to software development.
Absolutely. Instead of building an entire application and then releasing it all at once, Agile teams work in small increments, delivering usable pieces of software frequently. This allows for quicker feedback, faster learning, and a more responsive approach to development.
So it's about getting something out there quickly, getting feedback, and iterating based on that feedback.
Yeah.
I like that. What other Agile practices are important to understand?
Another core concept is the minimum viable product, or MVP. It's about identifying the smallest, simplest version of your product that delivers value to the customer and then building and releasing that first.
I see. So it's not about building a half-baked product. It's about identifying that core value proposition and delivering that as quickly as possible.
You got it. The MVP isn't about cutting corners. It's about validating your assumptions, getting early feedback, and ensuring you're building something people actually want.
So it's like testing the waters before diving in head first. And I imagine this MVP approach can help avoid those situations where teams spend months building something that nobody ends up using.
Exactly. The MVP allows you to test your hypotheses, learn from your customers, and iterate your way to a successful product.
This is all starting to make a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
we've got agile values, methodologies like Scrum, Kanban, and XP, and practices like working in small batches and building MVPs. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. But what about specific development practices? How do agile principles influence the day-to-day work of developers?
That's a great segue into some of the more technical aspects of Agile. Two practices you'll hear a lot about are behavior-driven development, or BDD, and test-driven development, or TDD.
Okay, those sound interesting, but I have to admit I'm not quite sure what they mean. Can you break them down for me?
Absolutely. Let's start with BDD. Imagine you're building a website. With BDD, you start by defining the desired behavior of the website, but from the user's perspective. So you write these scenarios that describe how a user interacts with the site and what the expected outcome should be.
So you're focusing on what the user experiences rather than just the technical details of the code.
Exactly. And to do this, BDD uses a simple human-readable language called Gherkin. It uses keywords like given, when, and then to structure these scenarios.
Gherkin, like the pickle.
Yes, exactly. It's a way to create those clear, unambiguous specifications that everyone can understand, from developers to business stakeholders. For example, a scenario might look like this. Given I am on the home page, when I click the login button, then I should be redirected to the login page.
Ah, that makes sense. It's like writing a plain English instruction manual for the software. So how does test-driven development fit into all of this?
All right, so test-driven development is all about building quality into the software from the ground up. With TDD, you write the test before you write the code.
Wait, you write the test first. Isn't that like putting the cart before the horse?
It might seem counterintuitive, but it forces you to think about how the code should behave before you even start writing it. You start by writing a test that describes the desired behavior of a small piece of code. Initially, this test will fail because you haven't written the code yet. Then you write just enough code to make that test pass.
I see. So it's a very iterative process. You write a test, it fails, you write the code to make it pass, and then you repeat.
Exactly. And there's a third step, refactoring. Once the test passes, you can refine and improve the code, making it more efficient and readable, all while ensuring that the tests still pass. This is known as the red-green refactor cycle.
Red for failing tests, green for passing tests, and refactor for improving the code. I like that. It's a very systematic approach to development.
It is, and TDD has a lot of benefits. It helps prevent bugs early on.
Yeah.
It leads to cleaner and more modular code, and it makes it easier to add new features or make changes later on.
So by writing tests first, you're essentially building a safety net for your code. It's like having a blueprint for a building before you start laying bricks.
That's a great way to think about it. And BDD and TDD, they work hand in hand. BDD helps you define that desired behavior from the user's perspective, while TDD helps you ensure that the code actually behaves as expected.
Okay, this is all starting to click. Agile values, methodologies, and specific development practices all working together to create better software. But it sounds like Agile is more than just a set of technical practices. It seems like it has a big impact on how teams and organizations operate.
You're absolutely right. Agile isn't just about writing code, it's about changing the way we work. And that's where things get really interesting.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
We've been really unpacking this world of Agile software development, looking at the core values, those popular methodologies like Scrum and Kanban, and even dipped our toes into those development practices like BDD and TDD. I'm feeling like we're starting to really grasp this Agile thing.
That's great to hear. It's like we're building, a solid foundation of Agile knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now I'm curious about the bigger picture. How does Agile impact teams, organizations, the whole shebang? It seems like it requires, well, a pretty big shift in thinking.
Absolutely. Agile isn't just about, adopting a few new tools and processes. It's about embracing a new way of working. And that can be a big challenge for organizations that are so used to those traditional hierarchical structures.
I can imagine. In a traditional setting, you have managers assigning tasks, setting deadlines, controlling every little detail. How does that even work in an Agile environment where teams are, self-organizing and empowered to make decisions?
That's one of the biggest hurdles organizations face, for sure, when transitioning to Agile. It requires a shift in leadership style from command and control to, servant leadership.
The servant leadership. That's interesting. What does that mean exactly?
So it means that leaders in an Agile organization, they see their role as, supporting and empowering their teams rather than, directing and controlling them. They focus on removing obstacles, providing resources, and fostering an environment where teams can really thrive.
So it's less about telling people what to do and more about creating the conditions for them to succeed. I see how that would be crucial in an agile environment where
Right.
teams need to be, self-sufficient and adaptable.
Exactly. Agile teams need the autonomy to make decisions, to experiment, and to learn from their mistakes. And that requires, well, it requires a culture of trust and transparency.
Speaking of trust and transparency, one thing I'm curious about is how Agile handles planning. In a traditional project, you'd have that detailed plan with timelines, milestones, all the tasks laid out. But Agile seems to be all about adapting to change. How do you reconcile those two things?
It's a great question, and one that often trips people up. Agile doesn't mean you don't plan, it just means you plan differently. Remember that analogy we talked about earlier about, navigating a field of penguins?
Ah, yes. Trying to plan a route across a field full of waddling penguins. You can't predict exactly where each penguin will go, just like you can't foresee every twist and turn in a software project.
Exactly. Agile embraces that uncertainty. Instead of creating a rigid plan that's, well, likely to become obsolete the moment it's created, we focus on iterative planning.
Iterative planning, what does that mean?
So it means we plan for the short term, for what we know now. We break down the work into small, manageable chunks, prioritize those chunks, and focus on delivering value in those short cycles. And as we learn more, we adapt the plan.
So it's like having a series of short-term plans that are constantly being adjusted based on, new information and feedback.
Precisely. We still have that long-term vision, a destination in mind, but we recognize that the path to get there, well, it might change along the way.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like using a compass to guide you in the general direction, but being willing to adjust your course based on, the terrain or the weather conditions.
I love that analogy. And it highlights another important aspect of Agile planning, collaboration. So planning isn't something done in isolation by a project manager. It's a collaborative process involving the entire team, including developers, testers, and business stakeholders.
So it's about bringing everyone together to share their knowledge and perspectives, making sure everyone's aligned, everyone understands the goals.
Exactly. And that collaborative approach, it extends beyond planning. It's woven into the fabric of agile teams. Remember those cross-functional teams we talked about earlier?
Yes, the teams with all the different skill sets needed to actually build the product.
Right. Those cross-functional teams are, well, they're essential for effective agile development. They break down those silos, promote communication, and foster a sense of shared ownership.
Makes sense. If everyone is responsible for the success of the product, they're more likely to collaborate and support each other.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just having the right mix of skills, You need to cultivate the right culture, a culture that values teamwork, communication, and continuous improvement.
So it's not enough to just put people together in a team and call it agile. You need to create an environment where they can truly thrive.
You're exactly right. It's about providing the right support, training tools, and then empowering the team to really take ownership and make decisions.
That sounds like a pretty big shift for a lot of organizations. What are some of the key things that leaders can do to foster this kind of agile culture?
Well, one of the most important things is, leading by example. Leaders need to demonstrate those agile values themselves, embrace change, be open to feedback, and empower their teams.
So it's not just about talking the talk, it's about walking the walk. What else can leaders do?
They can create a safe space for, well, experimentation and learning. Agile is all about trying new things, failing fast, and learning from those failures. Leaders need to encourage that kind of experimentation and create an environment where people feel comfortable taking risks.
That makes sense. If people are afraid to fail, they're less likely to try new things or push the boundaries.
Exactly. Another important aspect is providing clear goals and metrics. Agile teams need to know what they're working towards and how their work is contributing to the overall success.
But how do you measure success in an Agile environment? Traditionally, you might track things like deadlines and budgets, but Agile seems to be more about, delivering value. How do you measure that?
That's a great question. Agile teams often use different metrics than traditional projects. Instead of focusing on outputs, like lines of code or features delivered, they focus on outcomes. Things like customer satisfaction, user engagement, or revenue generated.
So it's about measuring the impact of the work, not just the work itself.
Precisely. And that shift in focus, it can be challenging for organizations that are so used to traditional metrics. It requires a different way of thinking about success.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of leadership, culture, and metrics in fostering those successful Agile teams. Are there any specific practices or techniques that teams can use to stay on track and deliver value consistently?
Absolutely. One practice that's crucial for Agile teams is what we call the definition of done.
Definition of done, what does that mean?
It's about having a shared understanding of what it means for a task or a feature to be truly complete. It's not just about writing the code. It's about ensuring that the code is tested, it's documented, it's integrated with the rest of the system, and that it meets all the necessary quality standards.
So it's like having I don't know, a checklist for a recipe.
Yeah.
You don't just throw the ingredients together and call it a day. You follow the steps, check for doneness, and you make adjustments along the way.
That's a perfect analogy. And having a clear definition of done, it helps prevent ambiguity, reduces rework, and ensures that everyone is, working towards that same goal.
Makes a lot of sense. It's like having a shared definition of what quality actually means, what other practices are important.
Another key practice is continuous integration and continuous delivery, or CI/CD, as it's often called.
I've heard those terms before, but I'm not sure I fully understand what they mean in practice.
So CI/CD is all about automating the process of building, testing, and deploying software. It's like having this well-oiled machine that takes your code from development to production, smoothly and efficiently.
So instead of waiting for this big manual release process, you're constantly integrating changes and pushing them out to users.
Exactly. And that allows you to get feedback faster, iterate more rapidly, and reduce the risk of errors and delays.
That sounds incredibly powerful. But I imagine setting up a robust CI/CD pipeline can be, pretty complex.
It definitely takes effort and expertise, but think of it as an investment in your team's efficiency and your product's quality. It's like building a bridge that allows you to, cross the river faster and more safely.
So CI/CD helps streamline that development process and ensures that changes are delivered quickly and reliably. What else should we know about Agile practices?
Well, another important aspect is that focus on feedback loops. Agile teams are constantly seeking feedback from customers, from stakeholders, and from each other. This feedback helps them to learn, adapt, and continuously improve.
So it's not just about delivering software, it's about learning and evolving along the way.
Exactly. Agile is a journey of continuous improvement. It's about embracing change, seeking feedback, and, iterating our way to success.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive, from planning and execution to team dynamics and organizational change. We've explored some of the key challenges and best practices of working in an agile way. It's clear that agile is more than just a set of tools and techniques. It's a mindset, a philosophy, a way of working that can transform how we approach software development.
You've summed it up perfectly. Agile is about embracing change, fostering collaboration, and delivering value. It's a journey of continuous improvement that can lead to, greater success and fulfillment.
And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, we'll shift our focus to the future of Agile. What are the emerging trends, the potential pitfalls to avoid, and the opportunities to seize in this ever-evolving landscape? Stay tuned. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've journeyed through those core principles of Agile, explored all those different methodologies, and even tackled those big organizational shifts, that it demands. But now it's time to look ahead. What does the future hold for Agile?
Well, the future of Agile I think it's really exciting. It's a landscape full of possibilities, but it is evolving quickly, and with those new challenges and trends emerging all the time.
Okay, so what's on the horizon for Agile? What trends should we be paying attention to?
One of the biggest is the rise of what we call Agile at scale. So organizations are no longer content with, just a few Agile teams here and there. They're looking to implement Agile principles across entire departments or even the whole enterprise.
That sounds like a massive undertaking. What are some of the challenges of scaling Agile effectively?
Scaling Agile is, it's definitely complex. It requires a shift in mindset and culture, and often even organizational structure. One of the biggest challenges is maintaining alignment and consistency across multiple teams, multiple departments.
Right. You can't just take what works for one team and expect it to work for everyone.
Exactly. Scaling Agile requires a tailored approach. You have to consider, the unique context and the needs of each organization. And another trend shaping the future of Agile is that increasing importance of data and analytics.
So it's not just about being Agile, it's about being data-driven as well.
Precisely. Agile teams are using data more and more to track progress, measure outcomes, and make those more informed decisions. This data-driven approach helps them to well, to continuously improve their processes and deliver more value to those customers.
Like it's almost like having a compass,
Yeah.
that's guiding you towards your destination.
That's a great way to put it. Data provides the insights and the feedback that Agile teams really need to navigate all those complexities of software development. And speaking of navigating complexities, let's talk about another trend that's gaining momentum, the fusion of Agile and DevOps.
We touched on DevOps before, but how is this fusion evolving, and what does it mean for the future of Agile?
Well, I think the lines between Agile and DevOps are becoming increasingly blurred. Organizations are realizing that these two approaches, they're complementary, and that integrating them can lead to even greater speed, efficiency, and quality.
So it's like combining, I don't know, the agility of a speedboat with the power and efficiency of a cargo ship.
I like that analogy. Agile provides the framework for iterative development and customer focus, while DevOps brings that automation, that continuous delivery, and a culture of collaboration.
Okay, so Agile and DevOps they're becoming like two sides of the same coin, working together to deliver value faster and more reliably. What other trends are out there?
Well, another one worth noting is that growing emphasis on customer centricity. Agile has always been about delivering value to the customer, but this focus is, well, it's becoming even more pronounced.
So it's not just about building software, it's about building the right software, the software that truly meets those needs of your users.
Exactly. Agile teams are using techniques like user research, design thinking, and those customer feedback loops to ensure they're building products people actually love to use.
It's like having this direct line to your customers, allowing you to tap into their insights and their preferences.
Precisely. Customer centricity is becoming a core principle of Agile, driving that innovation and ensuring that those software development efforts are truly aligned with user needs. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about some potential pitfalls to avoid as Agile continues to evolve.
Okay, let's talk about those gotchas. What are some common mistakes that organizations make when they're implementing or scaling Agile?
One of the biggest pitfalls is falling into the trap of what we call cargo cult Agile.
Cargo cult Agile. That sounds intriguing. What does that mean?
So it's when organizations, they adopt those superficial trappings of Agile without truly embracing the underlying principles and values. They might have daily stand-up meetings and use Agile terminology, but their culture and their mindset, they haven't really changed.
So it's like going through the motions without truly understanding the spirit of Agile.
Exactly. Cargo cult Agile can lead to frustration, to disillusionment, and ultimately a failure to realize the benefits of Agile. Another pitfall to watch out for is becoming too rigid or dogmatic in your Agile implementation.
Right. Agile is all about adaptability and flexibility. So becoming too rigid seems, counterproductive.
Precisely. Agile is a set of principles and guidelines, not a set of rules. It's important to adapt your Agile approach to the specific context and the needs of, your organization and your projects.
So it's about finding the right balance between structure and flexibility.
Exactly. Agile is a journey of continuous improvement. It's about experimenting, learning, and adapting along the way. Now, as we wrap up our deep dive, let's explore some of the opportunities that the future of Agile holds.
Okay, let's talk about those opportunities. What are some of the ways that Agile can help organizations thrive in this rapidly changing world?
Agile provides a framework for embracing change, fostering innovation, and delivering value. As organizations face increasing disruption and uncertainty, Agile can help them to adapt, to respond, and to stay ahead of the curve.
So it's like having a set of tools and principles that enable you to navigate those turbulent waters of the business world.
Exactly. Agile can help organizations become more customer-centric, more data-driven, and more responsive to those ever-changing needs of their users. And as technology continues to evolve at this, unprecedented pace, Agile can help organizations stay ahead of the curve and deliver those innovative products and services.
So the future of Agile is all about adaptability, continuous learning, and embracing change. It's about finding that right balance between structure and flexibility, and using data to drive innovation and customer value.
You got it. And as we conclude our deep dive into the world of Agile, I want to leave you with one final thought. Agile is not just about software development. It's a mindset, a philosophy, a way of working that can be applied to any field, any industry.
So whether you're building software, designing products, or leading a team, those principles of Agile can really help you to achieve your goals and thrive in this ever-changing world.
Precisely. Agile is about embracing change, fostering collaboration, and delivering value. It's a journey of continuous improvement that can lead to greater success and, well, and fulfillment.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Agile software development.
Yeah.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights and are, well, inspired to embrace that Agile mindset in your own work and in your life.
And remember, Agile is not a destination, it's a journey. Keep learning, keep adapting, and keep iterating. Until next time.